Because you see, those images have been etched into our consciousness. Doesn't matter what your values are, what you think you believe. This country has told you who the enemy is.
Yeah.
They have engraved it in your psyches. This is the dangerous one. This is the one to be feared. This is the one that we have to lock up. This is the bad guy. And that's what I want folks to understand. It's not even conscious to us. It's in the unconscious. And so what happens is you begin to get those images and you begin to believe them even when you live in the skin. This was a study that was done in 2016 that still believed that Black people didn't feel pain on the level of white people.
Right, right.
Okay, so we're looking at those beliefs that have matriculated into contemporary society. The other myth is that slavery ended and the playing field got leveled, right? Everything was okay. And that's just not true, because after slavery came the multitude of lynchings, all the way up through George Floyd, Breonna. You know, it goes all the way. When did the actual injury and assault stop? You know, Malcolm X said, if you stick a knife 9 inches into my back and you pull it out 3, that's not progress. Even if you pull the knife all the way out, that's not progress. Progress is healing the wound, and America hasn't pulled out the knife.
Imagine closing your eyes and instantly visualizing a scene. What that image reveals about your unconscious biases might surprise you. This exploration delves into the enduring impact of historical trauma, particularly American shadow slavery, and how it shapes our present reality, as illuminated by the work of figures like Dr. Joy DeGruy. We'll examine how deeply ingrained biases, often unseen, perpetuate inequality. The narrative of racial progress often focuses on the milestones achieved, but what about the wounds that remain unhealed? What about the systems that continue to perpetuate inequality, even as we strive for a more just society? We will look at how the idea of a leveled playing field is a myth, and how the fight for equality is far from over. This is not just a history lesson, it's a call to action, a challenge to confront the uncomfortable truths that lie beneath the surface of our collective consciousness. Prepare to challenge your assumptions and see the world anew.
In watching your lectures, you always start your keynotes with a certain activity, and you ask people to close their eyes.
Yes, yes. And I actually added that, and the reason why, and I'll actually do it with your audience if that's okay.
Yeah.
But the reason I added it is because sometimes, you know, everything becomes so cerebral. Everything becomes intellectual. Everything becomes, and folks really come in with this idea, especially when I ask everyone, do you have a standard that you live by? And most of us do. We have some sort of a standard, right? And so we have a perception of ourselves. We have a perception of our beliefs. But what I wanted to help people know is why it was necessary for us to go beyond just what we think we believe, to go deeper. And that's why I say, let's go inside now. Let's go inside our own bodies, each individual. So I would ask your audience, if they are watching, I would ask them to close their eyes, and I'm going to walk you through a guided imagery.
Yeah.
It is nighttime, and you're in your car. You could be the driver or you could be the passenger. You look ahead, and as you approach, you're noticing that there are blinking lights. And as you get closer, you see that these blinking lights are police cars. There are police cars blocking you. There are police cars lining either side of the street. Beyond the police cars is a yellow tape. Beyond the yellow tape, there are 3 young men. They're on their knees. Their hands are handcuffed behind their backs, and they don't have shirts on. Now open your eyes. And I ask them what they see. Now, normally, I don't ask it of adult audiences, but I can see it sometimes when they flush because I said, I don't know what you saw, but I'm going to guess it wasn't 3 blonde-haired, blue-eyed boys on their knees.
Yeah.
And I do that because I want folks to know what has been embedded in our psyches. And I said that not only have I asked that question of adults, I've asked it of high school students. and they see brown and black boys. And I asked it of middle school children, and they see brown and black boys, and I dared not ask it of elementary school children. Because you see, those images have been etched into our consciousness. Doesn't matter what your values are, what you think you believe. This country has told you who the enemy is.
Yeah.
They have engraved it in your psyches. This is the dangerous one. This is the one to be feared. This is the one that we have to lock up. This is the bad guy. And that's what I want folks to understand. It's not even conscious to us. It's in the unconscious. And so what happens is you begin to get those images and you begin to believe them even when you live in the skin. And that's the point. And the point beyond that is, you know, when I do my presentations, I show a whole litany of other slides. I show the slides of the young man who dove in the Mississippi to try to save 3 girls and a police officer who was trying to save them. He dove in, a 16-year-old Corian Evans, you know, and he didn't even think about his life. And he had no shirt on. And he was a black boy. But we don't see him.
Yeah.
We don't see his images. We don't see the images of tenderness between a black father and his child. We don't see the unity of black men or scholarship. We don't see the thousands and thousands of young black and Latino and Latinx and Asian folks graduating every year. Thousands of them. The historically black colleges bursting at the seams with scholars. We don't see those images. And that's deliberate. That's intentional. And when we don't show the images, I mean, not only does America not show the images, we don't show the images.
Right.
Right? That's why I appreciate being here. I appreciate being in this space with you. Because you're going to show those realities.
Absolutely.
You're going to tell them. You're going to demonstrate them.
I mean, American chattel slavery. I mean, you delve into this. You give historical facts that many of us we've never learned about when we read your book, right? And I was an African history major, studies major at Ohio State. And so there are some scenarios that you give. There's some language that you use in this book that I would have never known before 2015 when I got a copy of this book. But you talk about the impact of American chattel slavery. 339 years of folks who got unpaid labor and what separation, right, that created, what divide that created. But really 339 years and we're still here with no help. We are a miracle.
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
We are a miracle. Because I think what people don't understand is that how American chattel slavery differed from other forms of slavery that preceded it. So if you think about, you know, and this is the kind of pushback you get when you talk about slavery. Well, I wasn't there. I didn't do it.
Yeah.
And look at how long ago that was, you know. And they cannot seem to connect the dots on that. But what made it unique from any other form of enslavement was the manner in which a person became enslaved, the length of servitude, the treatment of the enslaved, and how they were perceived as human beings. Before the European slave trade began, most people who became enslaved became so as a result of war. 2 societies went to war, winners enslaved the losers, so on and so forth. But Europeans systematically turned the capturing, shipping, and breeding of other human beings into a business that would become the backbone of an entire economy.
Yeah.
You see, that's different. And it was situated around a belief in our intrinsic dehumanization, our lack of humanness. We were not perceived as full humans. And therefore, because we were not full humans, we didn't have to be treated like humans. And while that, you may say, well, that was so ignorant. I believe it was over 222 medical students. This was a study that was done in 2016 that still believed that black people didn't feel pain on the level of white people.
Right.
Okay, so we're looking at those beliefs that have matriculated into contemporary society. The other myth is that slavery ended and the playing field got leveled, right? Everything was okay. And that's just not true, because after slavery came the multitude of lynchings, all the way up through George Floyd, Breonna. It goes all the way. When did the actual injury and assault stop? Malcolm X said, if you stick a knife 9 inches into my back and you pull it out 3, that's not progress. Even if you pull the knife all the way out, that's not progress. Progress is healing the wound, and America hasn't pulled out the knife. That's where we are.
And you talk about America not pulling out the knife because America doesn't really want to own up to the truth of how inhumane slavery and American chattel slavery really was.
Well, again, that is a door that no one wants to open because it creates cognitive dissonance. And cognitive dissonance occurs when you are simultaneously holding contradictory ideas, beliefs, habits. I often tell people I was in Portland. And in Portland, Oregon, God help me, when I was in Portland, you could, if you cough, somebody's going to offer you a herb, tell you how much echinacea you should have. And they say it's a place where nice clothes go to die, because people wear, socks with Birkenstocks.
Yeah.
I wish it weren't true. But yeah, it is. And these are the same people, if you ask, well, I'm vegan. Okay, good. Yeah, it's wonderful. I jog at least, 3 to 5 miles a day. Okay. I also smoke crack on the weekend. Now, you see, this would then be a contradiction. And what they do to deal with the dissonance associated with that is you do all those other things.
The initial guided imagery exercise, a seemingly simple act of closing one's eyes and visualizing a scenario, serves as a powerful catalyst for introspection. It forces individuals to confront the deeply ingrained biases that often operate beneath the surface of conscious awareness. This exercise illuminates the chasm between our stated beliefs and the unconscious associations that shape our perceptions, particularly concerning race. The instinctive visualization of young black men in a scene of criminal apprehension, regardless of the individual's own racial background, underscores the pervasive nature of racial stereotypes. These stereotypes, rooted in the historical dehumanization of black people, continue to shape our perceptions and interactions in subtle yet profound ways. This conditioning is not merely a matter of individual prejudice, it is a reflection of the systemic racism that permeates our society. The legacy of American chattel slavery, a system designed to strip black people of their humanity and transform them into commodities, extends far beyond the historical confines of its existence. Unlike other forms of enslavement, it was predicated on the belief in black inferiority, a belief that justified the brutal treatment and exploitation that characterized the institution. This foundational belief in inherent difference has persisted, subtly and overtly, shaping social, political, and economic structures long after the formal abolition of slavery. The myth of a leveled playing field following emancipation is a dangerous fallacy, a convenient narrative that ignores the systemic barriers erected to maintain white supremacy. The era of Jim Crow, with its legalized segregation, disenfranchisement, and violence, served as a continuation of the oppressive system, albeit in a different form. The countless lynchings, the denial of basic rights, and the persistent economic disparities all testify to the enduring legacy of slavery, proving that the knife, as Malcolm X described, was never fully removed. The ongoing struggle for racial justice is not merely a matter of addressing isolated incidents of discrimination. It is a struggle against the deeply entrenched systems that perpetuate inequality. These systems, embedded in institutions like law enforcement, education, and housing, continue to disadvantage black communities, perpetuating a cycle of poverty and marginalization. The reluctance to confront this historical reality stems from a deep-seated cognitive dissonance, a discomfort that arises from reconciling the nation's idealized image of itself with the harsh realities of its past and present. This dissonance manifests in the denial of systemic racism, the minimization of its impact, and the tendency to blame victims for their own circumstances. It is easier to cling to the myth of individual meritocracy than to acknowledge the structural barriers that prevent equal opportunity. However, true progress necessitates a willingness to confront these uncomfortable truths, to dismantle the systems that perpetuate inequality, and to create a society where race no longer determines one's life chances. The metaphor of the knife, as articulated by Malcolm X, powerfully illustrates the ongoing harm caused by historical injustices. Simply removing the knife, or ending overt acts of discrimination, does not erase the wounds inflicted by centuries of oppression. True progress requires addressing the root causes of inequality, healing the wounds of the past, and creating a society where all individuals have the opportunity to thrive. The absence of positive representation of black people in media and popular culture further perpetuates harmful stereotypes. The constant portrayal of black individuals as criminals, victims, or caricatures reinforces negative perceptions and limits the public's understanding of the diverse experiences and contributions of black communities. The deliberate exclusion of positive images contributes to the subconscious biases that the initial exercise reveals. The lack of representation reinforces the idea that black people are dangerous, or less than, instead of portraying them as full members of society, with diverse roles and positive contributions. The importance of truth and acknowledgement cannot be overstated. Only by confronting the full extent of our history can we begin to heal the wounds of the past and create a more just and equitable future. This requires a commitment to education, to dismantling systemic racism, and to amplifying the voices of those who have been marginalized. It requires a willingness to challenge our own biases and to engage in difficult conversations about race and inequality. We must actively seek out and amplify diverse perspectives, challenging the dominant narratives that perpetuate harmful stereotypes. The journey toward racial justice is a long and arduous one, but it is a journey that we must undertake. We must commit ourselves to dismantling the systems that perpetuate inequality, to challenging our own biases, and to creating a society where all individuals are treated with dignity and respect. Only then can we truly begin to heal the wounds of the past and build a future where race no longer determines one's destiny. This requires a collective effort, a commitment to ongoing education and self-reflection, and a willingness to challenge the status quo. The power of empathy and understanding is crucial in dismantling racial prejudice. By listening to the experiences of those who have been marginalized, we can gain a deeper understanding of the impact of systemic racism and develop a greater sense of compassion. We must also recognize the importance of allyship, of actively supporting and advocating for racial justice. Allyship requires more than just words. It requires action, a commitment to challenging injustice wherever it exists. Ultimately, the fight for racial justice is a fight for human dignity, a fight for a society where all individuals are valued and respected. It is a fight that requires courage, resilience, and an unwavering commitment to creating a more just and equitable world.